What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's 3M Open. Little hard to turn our attention immediately from the old course to TPC Twin Cities, but we're going to do it. We're going to find some valuable golfers. The field's not the worst field we've seen all year, and it's kind of a fun, little interesting course. I know there was a lot of Cam Smith tickets out there. Congratulations to everybody. That was the saddest I've ever been, cashing an outright ticket, but hey, a win is a win. Let's see if we can find some more great values this week. Let's jump right into it. This is the course key stats tool on my website, RickRunGood.com. It's where you'll see all the tools and data that's available. I just dumped in multiple years of the breakdown for European strokes gained. So now we have off the tee approach, around the green putting for European Tour events. I've got some other things coming very, very soon that I'm very excited about. This is the course key stats tool. And I have to kind of be honest here. This is the first time in a long time that I don't think the data necessarily passes the sniff test or passes the eye test. So we can talk through it. TPC Twin Cities, the 3M Open, this event elevated from, I think it was a Champions Tour event forever. The 3M Championship is what I think it was called, to now the 3M Open, a PGA Tour event. We've only played it 3 times, 2019, 2020, and 2021. This golf course, it's an Arnold Palmer design, and it is probably most well known for the water that's out there. There's just water on a lot of different holes. It can come into play off the tee. It can come into play on approach. In a couple of spots, you'll see big numbers. There's a lot of penalty strokes that are taken here. If you think back, I guess it was a couple years ago, Dustin Johnson, this is where he put 3 in a row in the water and shot an 80 or an 81 or something like that. And then I think he then won the next week. I can't remember, but it was like win 78, 80, win or something outrageous like that. But that's possible. It is still generous off the tee. However, you can get yourself into water situations. There's penalty shots. You have to avoid the big number, which I believe this will be a birdie fest, but I believe that there'll be a wide range of outcomes, a wide range of scores, right? Like you might see a 64 and a 77 on the same day, right? Just because guys that can avoid the water, guys that can avoid the penalty are going to have their way with the course, and guys that can't are obviously going to post big numbers. So generous off the tee. I think that these greens and green sides are arguably kind of some of the easiest greens you can get. Very flat. Even the poor putters find a way to find success around here. Around the green, not particularly important. However, I think there's data that points to some of these bunkers being a little bit difficult to get in and out of. So maybe we'll work on sand saves or something like that when we get to the model at the end. But if you just look straight at the course keys, like this is just the correlation model. So last 3 years, it found a decent emphasis on driving accuracy over driving distance, and it found a decent emphasis on strokes gained around the green. Now, again, I think I can pull this up, but I think last year's winner, Cam Champ, won this losing strokes around the green. Let me look. Yeah, so here's the holy grail. I just pulled up like all 3 years of data at TPC Twin Cities. Michael Thompson won it in 2020, losing strokes around the green. Cam Champ won it in 2021, last year, losing strokes around the green. Now, there are obviously guys who did not win and gain strokes around the green, or in general are better around the green players than maybe they showed that week. So that's what you have to keep in mind when you're looking at this data. I think one of the flaws in the industry or from other people is like they just look at what the guys in the top 10 did, or they just look at what the winners did, and they try to find correlation in that. That doesn't make any sense, right? Those guys are by definition having outlier performances and will skew your data. So I look at everybody in the field. So while this doesn't necessarily pass the eye test, I mean, the data's the data. There's no real skewing of it. So driving accuracy ranked 16th, which means there was 15 other courses on the PGA Tour in which driving accuracy was more important. And then around the green, was 10th, which means there's only 9 other courses on the PGA Tour in which strokes gained around the green was more important. So the way to look at that is guys that are generally good around the green for the season had good weeks at TPC Twin Cities. Whether that's important or not, for this week. You decide, but that's what the data says. So we can kind of run that in the model. We can kind of put into what we think the eye test stuff is. We can run a couple of them throughout the week. But to me, this is a really good opportunity for your team no putt kind of bombers, guys that are generally good off the tee, who aren't going to spray it too far, who are able to avoid the big number, who can kind of get birdie streak like that. That's kind of the mold of golfer that I'm looking for this week. And we'll talk about those guys as we go through the cheat sheet, which we are going to do right now. Here is the cheat sheet, and there are only 3 golfers over $10,000. It's a fairly top-heavy field. Tony Finau, Hideki Matsuyama, Sungjae Im, 10-5, 10-3, 10,000. So this, to me, is probably a very big game theory week because we have seen that this course has been relatively volatile over the years. I think that we can kind of embrace that volatility to some extent. And if we find ourselves in a situation where one of these golfers is really, really popular, we probably just don't need to go there, right? And we can take our chances that either that guy finds disaster or that guy just has a subpar week. Because let's be honest, the way it's trending, as I imagine, I mean, it's very early on a Monday. I imagine Tony Finau is going to be quite popular. There are a few reasons for that. He is the most expensive golfer, but he is not prohibitively expensive. So we have seen other top golfers be what? $11,000, $11,100, $11,200. A $10,500 price tag on the most expensive golfer provides a lot of built-in flexibility. You look at his history around the 3M Open. 28th, 3rd, and 23rd. He's played it every year of its existence. He hasn't finished outside the top 28. Coming off of a pretty decent finish at the Open Championship last week. We look at his golfer profile, we're going to find more great results. He's gained strokes off the tee. Basically every event dating back to the Genesis Invitational except for the US Open. The putter has been much improved. The short game in general, much, much better. Ball striking is all there. I don't have any issue. Like what's the bad thing to say about Tony Finau other than he might check in at 24% ownership, and we are asking someone who's 10,500 to either win or finish inside at worst like the top 6 or 7 or something like that, right? At worst. So you're asking for a lot out of a guy who is certainly capable of it, but isn't the knock on Tony that he doesn't win enough, right? I mean, listen. There's nothing in the metrics that says Tony Finau's not going to be a great play this week. I think that when we get to the live show on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, RickRunGood YouTube channel, I have a feeling we're going to have a projected ownership number that is too high for me. That is my current guess. So the natural pivots there are going to be either to Hideki or Sungjae Im. Let's start with Sungjae. There's been a lot of these like kind of rumors and speculation, and I don't know if it's been if it's even been confirmed or anything about kind of this lingering back injury for him. And I don't know if that's true, but what I do know is true is it's just not been a good run. Look at this. So the ball, so a lot to unravel here. So for Sungjae, he lost 10.5 strokes putting at the Open Championship. Is that right? That's one of those things when I see that, I'm like, I'm going to have to double check the underlying data to make sure that's actually correct because it's such an outlier. And yeah, it's correct. Okay, so I'm not as worried about that, right? The old course, which can cause fits, to lose 10.3 strokes putting over the course of a week when your previous worst was 4.79. Like I'm not worried about that. What I'm more worried about for Sungjae is just the general lack of good ball striking that we've seen from him. 3 straight events in which he's been basically subpar on approach, which you're going to have to be fairly stout this week. And if you're just a little bit off and you're finding water and things start to compound very, very quickly, probably like they did for him on the greens at the old course. And he was not able to put a stop to that at the old course, right? I know it's a completely different club and a completely different course, but when things start spinning really, really fast on the golf course, you want your guys to be able to like put a pin in it and figure it out. And Sungjae punted away 10 strokes on the putting surfaces last week, which is not great. Hideki's the other one. So Hideki, I think you could argue the finish at the Open Championship, which was a T68, was not all that unusual. His Open Championship record in general wasn't great, but now you look at that and you say, okay, well, he also missed the cut at the Scottish Open and he had that weird DQ at the Memorial, but he did have that really good 4th place finish at the US Open. I don't know what to do with Hideki. I think if he were to check in at like 7% ownership, which I don't think is going to happen because he's got a 7th place finish here in 2019, I'd be interested. I think honestly, the arguably the best pivot, if you do not want to play Tony Finau, is to just start in the 9K range. You know, you're only avoiding 3 guys. There's question marks or ownership concerns about basically all 3 guys in the top of the board. Starting in the 9K range feels a bit more natural. Sahith Tagala is $9,800. Now, this feels like a really good spot for him, right? So we talked about this all the time. I think his results are going to end up being relatively more volatile than they should be. He's kind of a field golfer. It's not technical at all. But what you're seeing now is a stretch of, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive cuts made. The last 5, he's gained strokes off the tee. That's the first time in his career he's done that. Obviously a very young career, but the first time he's gained 5 straight events off the tee. Short game, stout, ball striking, very good. The putter's all over the place. This is good. Right? If you can lose 3 strokes putting in a week and gain 4 the next week and then gain 2 and lose 5, like that's fine. I think that's the mold of the type of golfer that's going to have a lot of success around TPC Twin Cities. A couple other guys here that I find interesting in the 9K range. Basically, all of them. It's only 4 guys. Adam Hadwin's here. Adam Hadwin has cooled off from his really hot start to 2022, but the 6th place finish here in 2021, the 4th place finish in 2029, I bet you he's probably got the best strokes gain number of anybody in this field at TPC Twin Cities. Can I confirm that? No, I cannot because Cam Champ has, that win in there. This could be a spot for him to kind of get right, roll in a lot of putts, all that fun stuff. And you know, that miscut to John Deere, outside of that, it's been a really good year for him. McNeely, Davis, Riley round out the rest of this group. McNeely, I don't know what his popularity is going to be. Did anyone watch the Barracuda last week? Because if they watched it, I'm pretty sure he punted it away on Sunday. Let me look at this. Okay, so also what I did is I loaded in the Barracuda stats. I loaded in the strokes gained total from last week. So, but not the Stableford scoring. That's how they actually determine that event. But obviously these guys shoot like, oh, he shot a 68, but that translates to 15 points or whatever. So what I loaded in, I just looked at the strokes. So I was able to load in the strokes gained total. So that is included. I didn't want to exclude this event because it's Stableford when they actually do put scores together. So just treat it like a Corn Ferry event or something where we don't have the strokes gain breakdown, but we have the strokes gain total. So I guess I'm wrong. McNeely didn't necessarily punt it away on Sunday, but he lost a little bit to the field, 0.37. But in an event like that, where like you're just getting lapped, right? If like you have to make so many birdies, you got to go low to kind of falter on Sunday, and he didn't even play all that well on the weekend in general, is a little bit disappointing. But I don't know if anybody cares, right? I don't know if anybody watched it. I don't know if are people just going to say, oh my God, Matt McNeely, who I've bet a million times this year, which by the way, I've bet a million times this year, including last week, who finished 16th here last year, has gone 8th, 16th, and 9th in his last 3 starts. I'm playing Matt McNeely. I don't know what people are going to do. I don't know if they were paying attention or not. So McNeely's probably kind of like a wait and see. Let's see what the ownership's going to be. Davis Riley, we have not seen since the Travelers. You know, if you go to the power rankings and still look at the last 36 rounds, Davis Riley is 6th in this field in strokes gained total. Last time we saw him was the John Deere, and he didn't play particularly well. He didn't miss the cut, did he? No, he finished 64th. So that's one of his worst finishes as of late, and that's still part of his 36, right? It goes back a couple of weeks, goes back a couple of months, but that's still part of his 36. He's still the 6th best golfer in this field over that stretch. He's a elite ball striker. Couldn't you see him just getting hot and winning this, right? You know, if we went back 2 months ago, Davis Riley would be like the favorite to win this event, right? Like just like everyone was all in on this guy. So, yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'll probably end up playing a lot of Davis Riley. The 8K range starts with like one of my guys, right? Like Cam Davis is one of my guys, and I think this is a generally a pretty good spot for him. You know, he could get in trouble around here, you know, if he starts spraying it really badly and finding the water. But off the tee, again, it's weird. It's generous yet penal. There's a lot of spots where you can just bomb it without regard, but then there's a couple spots where you got to actually find a fairway. And those are mostly, if I remember correctly, the last couple of holes. If you remember when Cam Champ I could be, no, I remember this pretty vividly because Cam Champ cashed us like 125 to 1 ticket last year, which by the way, I think speaks to a lot of the volatility of this event. All three winners, right, have been outside of 100 to 1. So this is like embrace the volatility a little bit. Cam Champ like sprayed it way left into the trees off 18, right? And then had to hit like, I think he laid up and then stuffed one close. And then I don't know if he made the putt, but it's like there's some danger coming down the stretch, which usually gives us a pretty good finish. Think Matt Wolf, who makes eagle on Bryson on 18, right? Look, it ends up creating a really good finish. Anyway, here's Cam Davis. Gained 7.5 strokes to the field at the Barracuda, gained 9.6 at the John Deere. Those were his last two starts. A couple starts before that, T7 at the Charles Schwab. So we're seeing a guy who can pop. We're seeing a guy who, of what we have, the ball striking numbers are stout. The putter is competent. The short game stuff is an issue. However, like I think if you're tapping into that, you're just so screwed, right? Like I just, we talked about this. When he won at Rocket Mortgage, Detroit Golf Club was like the absolute best spot for him. Okay, he gained 3.2 strokes around the green that week. But like, if you are using it, you're probably not winning, right? Get to 25 under. Get to, I don't know what it's going to take. But I'm generally always in on Cam. I think this is probably one of the better spots for him. This is such a weird time of year because you've got the majors, which not everybody qualifies for, obviously. And then you have the alternate field events in which not all these guys want to go to. So these guys that have not played since the John Deere, I think are interesting. Adam Long, 8,600. He's coming off 3 straight top 25s. He went 25th here last year, runner-up the year before, 8,600. What are people going to do with him? Who else? Brendan Steele. Brendan Steele has not played a lot at all. 25th at the Travelers. We haven't seen him since the Travelers. 10th at the Memorial, 9th at the PGA. Talk about team no putt. Let's go. Brendan Steele. That's kind of like, I'm interested to see what people do with that. And then what they do with like Martin Laird, who's, coming off a good finish last week at the Barracuda, has played well coming in, has a 42nd here. Like, what are people going to do with them? Are they just going to opt to go down to Nick Hardy, who's been piling up great results, also played well at the Barracuda last week? Like, yeah, like I could see all of that happening. Right. So, the 9s and the 8s are so stock full of both options, pivots. They also include guys that I think could be X factors for the slate. I really love this spot. So just kind of to sum it up, in on Cam Davis again, really interested in Adam Long and Brendan Steele, what guys are going to do with them, and then Nick Hardy, and just be like, okay, like maybe I just run Nick Hardy back out there again. So that's such a fascinating little spot. The other thing is these guys they're also money makers in Jock market. So like JT Poston is one of the highest ROI golfers in the Jock market. Davis Riley is actually number 1 in this field in the last 10 starts. Brendan Steele up there as well. Brendan Steele's averaging a 49% ROI in the Jock market. And I can't imagine his sentiment's going to be too big this week. Jock market it's stock market DFS. You bid and buy and sell short shares of golfers, and then based on their finishing position, they get guaranteed payouts, and then that's how it determines their worth. So these are the guys. Now their prices are probably going to be a little bit more expensive this week, just because the field is a little bit weaker and all that stuff, but sentiment might not be as great, right? Like I would be targeting Brendan Steele. I would be targeting Michael Gligic. That's a guy we're going to talk about, like for sure in the Jock market. If you use the code Rick, you get 100% deposit match up to $100. And then Joe Idonia and myself, we do a power hour every Wednesday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel to talk through that. It's fascinating stuff. The 7K range, I think most people will probably just go back to Chris Goddard up here, right? I think that's kind of the natural place to go. He had a really disappointing miscut at the Barracuda, but I think people will forgive him for that. I think, again, that will be dependent on ownership for me. Jason Day, probably not. Jason Day's strengths now rely a bit more on the short game than I would like. Not necessarily sure that's a great fit. Adam Svensson sets up to be one of the most popular options, right? $7,600 for a guy who is, like, let's just do the last 36 rounds of everybody in the 7K range. Svensson is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's sixth. He's sixth in this field. or excuse me, sixth in this range, coming off a sixth at the Barracuda, has 4 straight top 25s, finished 15th here in 2019. There are a decent number of shots from like 150 to 200 on this course. And that is when I think of Svensson, maybe it's just because I saw him, I walked with him for a bit at Torrey earlier this year, is like, oh yeah, like those are the shots I want. If it's a wedge fest, not necessarily, but further out, I think is where Svensson is going to tend to find success. He's going to play out of the fairway more often than not. He's not particularly long, but it's okay because he gets away with it. So yeah, I mean, why not just go back to Svensson at $7,600? Honestly, the 7K range is not that much worse than the 8K range. There's a lot of really good guys in here. Smotherman, who's been a darling, is coming off an 8th place finish. Tom Kim, right? Tom Kim went 23rd at the Travelers, 3rd at the Scottish Open, made the cut at the Open Championship. There's a chance Tom Kim is way better than all of these other guys in the 7K range, right? I think we're still learning what he's going to end up being, but there's that's not a 0% chance that he's just that much better than everybody else is in this range. And then I mentioned, Gligic earlier. Like let's look at Gligic. I don't remember why he had to withdraw from the Canadian Open, which I'm assuming it was serious, considering he's a Canadian and like withdrawing from the Canadian Open is like sacrilegious. You do anything to avoid it. But outside of that, and he played 2 weeks later and played fine. Outside of that, this is a stretch of golf where he's like just forgive the WD. He's made 8 straight cuts essentially. And the last 4 have all been inside the top 40. There's a T10 at the John Deere, a T21 at the Barbasol. The ball striking numbers, what we have available, are generally pretty good. The putter can get hot. Let's roll them out. See what happens. Flat $7,000. And I thought there was maybe one more. Where's Michael Kim? I want to talk about Michael Kim. Is he in the 6K range? Let's see if Michael Kim's in the 6K range. Oh, he withdrew. That's a shame. I think he's going to play the Corn Ferry event this week, which that's kind of a different story in itself, but he might win that Corn Ferry event this week. Not to get too deep into that field, but the other problem is like he's so incentivized to play that and try to secure his tour card than to play this tour event, that's a conversation for a different day. But all right, so 6K range. I was looking for him, but I guess we're not going to get there. Justin Lauer at $6,900 has been just fine, right? He can make cuts, especially in a field like this. Finished 16th at the Barracuda, 8th at the Barbasol. This is not going to be a field that week, obviously, but it's going to be probably bottom 10 in terms of strength of field this season. So I imagine that these are the types of events that these guys can contend in. They lick their chops at. They know they got to make their FedEx Cup points, all that fun stuff. So Justin Lauer would be one guy that stands out. Sam Ryder, I think, always has that pop ability. He's got 2 top 35 finishes in 2 of his 3 trips to this event at TPC Twin Cities. What else do we have here? Austin Cook, believe it or not, has figured it out. Don't look past his last 5 because the metrics are horrible. The season long metrics are horrible. It's a bunch of missed cuts before that. But has he found something, right? 13th at the RBC, made the cut at the Travelers. 16th at the John Deere, 27th at the Barracuda, at the Barbasol, 60th at the Barracuda. So that's 5 straight cuts made for a guy who's $6,700 with 3 top 27s in there. The underlying metrics are not anything to write home about, but this is a better stretch of 5 events than you could say for a lot of the guys that are being priced in a similar spot. A couple of unknown entities or a couple of like high upside, like Cole Hammer, right? $6,500, just gets out of Texas, wants to come make a name for himself. We're going to learn what his upside is on the PGA Tour. And then I thought there was one more guy that I had down here that was kind of a bit of an unknown. Maybe it was just Cole Hammer, actually. Checking. It might have just been Cole Hammer. Okay, let's run a model and see what we can find. Okay, I'm just going to do something kind of wonky here. I'm just going to do last 36. Off the tee, should I go with the model or should I go against the model, right? Or the course key stats. So off the tee, let's just give like 15 to accuracy, 10 to distance. So a little bit of nod to accuracy, just keep the ball in play. approach play. Let's put like 10 on 150 to 175 and 10 on 175 to 200. I think that's where a lot of shots are going to come from, but I don't want to put too much on it. Around the green, I don't think we really need to do anything. Maybe 15 on sand saves, just because those tend to be a lot more difficult. And then putting, like, let's just go team no putt, right? Like, I don't need to putt here, like 0 on putting. That leaves us with, I think, 40. So now we should do, like, I want to do kind of like, I could just do, I could do 20 on birdie or better. And that leaves me with 20. How do I want to allocate this final 20? Let's do, and I don't want to double count anything. So let's just do this. Let's just ramp up approach play. Actually, okay. So what I could do is I could kind of just create my own little like weighted strokes gained approach type deal. And I'll just go on 4 buckets, kind of get rid of the wedge ranges and see what happens. This is very freaky for me. I generally do not do this. My number 1 golfer, oh boy, Hideki. Yikes. Am I just going to lose everything on Hideki? Hideki is number 1. Number 2 is Tony Finau. Eric Van Rooyen was number 3, who won this event, so that probably makes sense. He just withdrew. So he will be removed from this. Like, he withdrew like 15 seconds ago. So I'll remove him. Sung Jae Im is number 3. Wow. The 3 most expensive golfers are 1, 2, and 3. That never happens, does it? Emiliano Grillo 4, Stuart Sink, Doug Gim, Lucas Glover, Tom Hoagie, Adam Hadwin. Wow. This is a freaky one for me. Oh, Patton Kizzire might have been that other guy that I was interested in. He's 13th in my model. He's played good enough recently. Wow, this is so ugly. This was really not what I wanted to get into here. Wow. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's a volatile week. I mean, this is I guess this is outside what I would normally run, so it's kind of not surprising to see guys that I am not necessarily super interested in are popping up, but maybe I should embrace that a little bit, embrace the volatility a little bit. So it's basically 3 10K guys and then a bunch of guys in the 7K, which does make that interesting because I don't think the 7s are all that different than the 8s. I'm not sure the 8s are all that different from the 9s. And we just got to find the right guys in there. All right. Wow. Geez. We're off and running. 3M open. Lots more content to come. Tuesday live show with Andy. Wednesday, there's the Jock Market Power Hour plus the live chat. And we'll just keep it rolling. See what we can find. Love it. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. Best of luck this week. I'll talk to you guys soon.